Thank you very much indeed. My name's Stephen Parker. Thank you for being on the line today. I guess the first thing I'd like to do is really just, Frank's talked about the opportunities. I'd like to sort of go into a little bit about some of the challenges. And really, I start off with this notion of hype versus reality. Whenever a new offering comes out in our industry, we always choose to make it as different as possible from whatever's there. We create hype around it. And that hype, in many occasions, creates confusion for the existing customers. And one of the key areas of confusion at the moment is around the merging of the notion of the licensing or commercial model and the deployment model. Therefore, I put these two axes up and they become continuum, but the key is they are not one and the same. However, let's just look about what's happening today. We have our existing on-premise solutions, which I think everyone would be comfortable with saying they're typically sold as a license and they're typically installed locally. For the sake of hype, and one could argue for very, very good operational, deployment, architectural and commercial reasons, but certainly to drive the difference, SaaS ends up being as far away as possible from the traditional solutions, up in our top right-hand corner here. This appears to create difference, and of course we are in a relatively new market, but as the market matures, it won't be as simple as this. It never has been. We still have mainframes. We still have Unix boxes. The world does not, of IT, doesn't throw everything away because there are significant investments already. And instead of the revolution, which is happening to start with startups who are coming into the SaaS space, and existing on-premise providers who are setting up separate business units to try to not create confusion in their customer base, to provide hosted solutions, we will mature, and that maturity is going to start looking where these solutions and these opportunities start merging. Even with these two simple on-premise and SaaS offerings, there are organizations already who are taking advantage of both. Simple example, Microsoft Office Accounting. You buy the on-premise solution for the majority of your ERP work, but if you want to use the payroll module, because of the complexities of changing payroll requirements, that has been created as a hosted solution, and for that you pay a monthly fee. So already we have the combination of on-premise with a licensed model combining with cloud and rental. And of course we're fully aware of traditional, well I say traditional, we're already starting to use the language traditional, the new SaaS providers who are recognizing the need for offline capability. They still charge for this in the rental model, and therefore we have that. And of course we have existing on-premise organizations who've looked at their support costs and have said, how much is it costing us to ship out every month the new CD with the latest lookup table, maybe it's exchange rates. And so what they're doing is putting that common module in the sky, they're rewriting their on-premise application, so there is a small change to look at the hosted lookup table, but they're still charging it as a license model. All of these combinations are valid, and just as a simple example, the company that Frank and I on the management team for, we started off on the bottom left-hand corner in the on-premise world of ERPs. We had a number of our customers who wanted to take e-procurement documents directly into the back office. So we wrote a common module which we hosted, an e-procurement module. This made it simple for our customers. They paid an additional fee to their standard license. But over time we started to find other customers, not in our existing customer base, who were saying, we'd quite like to have the access to this common module. There was no conflict between our existing customers, these were net new customers, and we started selling it as a SaaS offering, top right. Over time again, those customers started to say, we'd like to integrate that to our back offering, and so we started to incorporate in our rental cloud model an offline component, again, through a rental story. Whilst anybody who had left our company and come back 5 years later might have said we'd been through a revolution, the reality was that through clear positioning of ourselves and communication to our customers, our partners, and our own staff, we had in fact created revolution through a number of evolutionary steps. And I think the key message here is, irrespective of where you are today, and irrespective of where you want to be in the future, this is not the simple binary on-premise and hosted. It's a slightly more complex and maturing story, and you need to have a very clear message for your customers, for your staff, and for your partners. Of course, any new idea brings with it challenges, and anybody who's been involved in the SaaS space will realize that commercial is one of the things that sits at the top. Cash flow, which has gone from being everything up front with a license with, say, an 18 or 20% recurring maintenance fee, is now replaced, if we go for the let's say the standard view of SaaS, which is a monthly fee, changes the cash flow completely, changes your revenue recognition. This itself can become challenging to your CFO, and you certainly should have your CFO on board, and you may want to think of ideas like factoring, but it has slightly deeper implications as well within your organisation. One of them that often gets raised is around how do you remunerate your sales staff, but think a little bit deeper. Right now, maybe you have an annual staff review that happens in the first quarter, because that's when the bulk of your revenue comes in. Therefore, you have an annual bonus. Maybe you need to think about running these quarterly, so they're more aligned to the performance of the business, but they're aligned to where the cash exists. So there are slightly deeper things than simply saying cash flow. Top line versus bottom line. Most organisations in the industry are measured in the marketplace by their top line revenue. We turned over X millions this year. If, however, we start leasing or having referral revenue from third parties, this may significantly improve our bottom line, our profit, but at the top line it could decimate it. So if we are, for example, currently a 10 million turnover business with 1 million profit, our turnover potentially, let's say, goes down to 5 million, but our profit up to 2. If we haven't communicated our changing position in the marketplace to our customers, to our staff, and particularly to the analysts in the marketplace, we may spend a lot of time having to explain an objection and spending time and effort doing something which should be a great story but becomes a problem to us. Micro-billing, another little thought. If currently, let's say, you sell something at £1,200 per year, assume it costs you £10 to cut an invoice, we can do the maths. It's less than 1% of the cost of the product. But if you're now doing monthly billing at £10 times 12, we're now significantly changing the cost of purely billing in comparison to the revenue stream, and we need to think about how we handle that. Delivery. Again, I touched on it earlier on that organisations are talking about do we rewrite from scratch or do we evolve? If we rewrite, does that mean we have a brand conflict with our existing customers? Do we need to set up a separate business stream? All of these need to be thought about and a clear position established. It isn't about right and wrong, it's about communicating your decisions. The other key thing that changes within this model is the role of partners. As an ISV, I know that the standard model was if I had the skills, I'd do it. If I didn't, I'd hire them. And if I had enough money, I'd buy a company that plugged the gaps. As a last resort, I would go out to technology partners. But in the hosted world, this fundamentally changes. We have to have partners who are going to do our hosting. Very, very few organisations nowadays, with the increasing expectations of our customers, would actually go and set up a hosting business. Gone are the good old days that Frank and I knew, where the backup server was in my home office on the end of an ADSL line. You by default have to go out to partners, and suddenly that starts changing a lot of other areas. If you're going to move into a global market, do you really want to have a team of people speaking 20 or 30 different languages ready to fly out around the world to do additional consulting work? Do you need to do that, or could you partner with other local companies? It's about having a position that you can communicate with those partners in a positive way. So what we believe, and maybe the takeaway from this before I hand back over to George, is to say that you need to have a clear message, and you need to understand where you want to fit in the marketplace's perception as whether you are having a watching brief, which may be the very intelligent place to be. It may be that many of your competitors are actively pursuing SaaS strategies. But if you start communicating that because of data protection rules, because of security considerations, that actually that would be a crazy thing to do today, then you take the high ground, the intellectual position. But if you're doing that internally but not telling your customers or the market watchers, you've missed your opportunity. So crucially, work out where you are within this 4 stages of evolution, which may actually be subtly different depending on the audience. But crucially, communicate that position to your 4 key audiences. Your customers, obviously. Your partners, naturally. The market watchers, these are the guys who are going to position you to an audience you don't necessarily directly control. And quite interestingly, and probably as important as any, your staff. It's crucial that all of your staff, whether they be admin or sales, are on message for your position, because that's what gives you the power in the market.
I just want to wrap up now and talk about a little bit about how we can help. So if you're looking, we've got a team here of people who can provide both strategic and tactical help. If it's positioning and messaging you need, then clearly Frank and Stephen are your people. If you're looking for engagement with partners, Foster McCallum can help here. We can help assess your existing partners for their suitability to take forward this new SaaS computing, cloud computing model. If it's new partners you're looking for, perhaps partners with more ability in terms of providing services and running with a SaaS model, we can help there as well. When it comes to enablement with partners, our associate solution channels can also help you. They provide the partners with rapid go-to-market tools to enable them to communicate very quickly with their customers. And secondly, they can help those partners with their demand generation. So